being able to set up the instruments right off the bat will maximize the learning potential in the classroom. Every second that you spend fiddling with an instrument that shouldn't have been in your classroom in the first place is a wasted learning opportunity for your students. As an orchestra teacher, it's also your responsibility to teach the students about the instruments. What is a quality instrument? What is an inferior instrument? What belongs in an orchestra and what does not belong in an orchestra? Viola, cello, or bass, very, very cheaply. Where do they cut corners? Usually in human labor, all right? They're just cranking these things out, thousands and thousands of instruments per shop. That's not what you want. That's not gonna serve your students well. And the thing is, coming into your program, your students and your parents don't know the difference. So you have to be the one to teach them. I highly recommend that you have some kind of document that has your expectations listed out. Hey, this is the bare minimum requirements for an instrument to be played in our orchestras. If your instrument does not meet the requirements, you don't get to play it. If it comes in from the shop, you know, all the people that you do business with, they should all have that document as well. Hey, if you send us one of these, it's coming right back to you. If they don't like it, they don't have to do business with you. But everybody has to play by the same rules. If we got one shop over here that's sending you junk, you know, and all the parents are buying the cheaper instruments, they're all buying the junk, and then the shop over here that's charging a little more, but it's meeting your expectations, they're not playing by the same rules, okay? And the parents aren't gonna enforce the rules, the students aren't gonna enforce the rules. Only person that's gonna enforce the rules are you. So for the beginners, before they even get their instruments, you should pick through them and make sure that they meet your expectations. And in this series, we're gonna show you how to set up these instruments. And in this video in particular, we're gonna be focused on quality control. Quality control and setup does not stop at the beginning year. You gotta do this again second year, do this again third year. You gotta make sure, because they're gonna be sizing up and they're gonna be doing other things during the summer. So you gotta make sure these instruments still meet your expectations. Is a $100 violin really a bargain? No, it's junk, all right? Would you spend $100 on junk? It's very expensive junk. It's not a bargain, it's a ripoff. Make sure that your students and parents understand that. Now, why are all these manufacturing facilities making junk instruments for, you know, $100 sometime? You go on Amazon right now, you can find violins on there for less than $100. Who's buying these violins? You know, people are just buying one to try to learn on their own. No, it's irresponsible orchestra teachers and studio teachers that are letting their students play on these junk instruments. And it's bad for our industry. It's very bad, okay? Don't be one of those people. Stand up for quality and you'll get quality in your classroom. Don't let your students play on junk. All right, let's get into this. When the students order their rentals, I always have them sent to the school. And if they're not gonna rent from one of our approved shops, I need to be able to inspect the instrument to make sure it meets our standards, and we're clear and upfront right off the bat. If it doesn't meet our standards, you know, if you've got Aunt Sally's cello that's been up in the attic for 100 years, and if it doesn't meet my expectations, you know, look, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to do something else, all right? Or you're gonna have to take that cello to a shop and have them work on it. It's probably gonna be more expensive than just getting another cello. So, you know, again, it's all about setting expectations and following through. All right, so beginning instruments, you know, have them set up in my classroom, and I just start pulling them out and looking them over. You know, the first thing we want to do is do a visual inspection and just do the quality control. Should the shops be doing the quality control? Of course they should. But hey, look, they're human, they make mistakes. You're human, you make mistakes too, but you're gonna have to live with those mistakes. They're not. You're gonna have to put up with these instruments day after day in your classroom. They're not gonna have to do any of that. So you need to see which ones you're gonna keep and see which ones you're gonna throw back. The first thing that I like to do is I like to check the peg box. And what I want to see the peg box, I want to make sure it's orderly. I want to make sure the pegs are drilled correctly. I want to make sure the pegs aren't extending too far. Now this one right here, it looks pretty orderly. The strings, you know, when my dad was teaching me how to fish, he taught me how to use a bait casting reel. And, you know, I didn't know how to control the line very well, and so it would backlash in there. And you don't want the peg box to look like that. And sometimes it does. It just looks like a mess in there. You want it to look orderly. This one looks okay at first glance, but then you start looking at the details on the G peg. It's drilled way too far over here, and you're having to take it all the way back here. They just took a random peg and just kind of threw it in there, all right? Sometimes you'll see the peg like drilled multiple times. It's like, well, this could be any peg. Not really. And once you start seeing that, you'll find out, and in a later video when I start doing the tuning check, you're gonna run into problems more than likely. We also don't wanna see these pegs extending beyond the peg box. Sometimes, these are kind of bad. But I've seen them extend like half an inch or more, and that's really bad. You definitely don't want to see that. That's not a good sign. After we're done looking at the peg box, we're going to come down further and check out the fingerboard. Now, this fingerboard has been painted. It's not ebony. It's probably maple that's been painted black over it, and the previous student played and paint wore off. That's not a good sign. This is going back to the shop because wrong materials. Okay? Top of here, is it spruce? Not great spruce, but it's spruce. The back can be as maple, but it's a split back for a violin. I mean, come on. Yeah, so if you can just kind of feel around the channeling to make sure it's the right material. If it's not soft, if it's really hard and dense, it's probably not spruce, and you can maybe tell from the grain too. You can look at the grain and make sure that it looks like spruce. Continue to come down. I'm going to skip the bridge. The bridge is going to get its own video. You want to check the tailpiece, okay? Now, for our students, I require a Whitner or Whitner compatible tailpiece. So this would immediately fail, but you kind of want to make sure that the tailpiece, the length of the tail gut is appropriate, okay? And, that the fine tuners are in good order. Come down, check the button. Check the chin rest, make sure that there's enough cork still left, make sure it's not coming off. Make sure that it's the right size chin rest for the instrument. If it's a fractional size instrument and it's got a great big chin rest on it, that's not gonna work. All right, coming around, we're gonna check the ribs to make sure there's no holes. You're gonna see that more common in the lower stringed instruments. Make sure that there's no holes in the ribs. Make sure that there's no open seams. A lot of times these are sitting in a warehouse all summer long, and they come to you, and it's been in a hot, humid warehouse, and this is water-soluble glue, so it just busts open, and that's not a good thing. You're gonna have to send that back to the shop. Again, that's probably more common with the lower string instruments, so be careful. Again, with the lower string instruments, make sure the end pin's working, okay? Make sure that the end pin moves in and out freely, that the end pin bushing is in good shape, and that it can tighten enough to where it can, support the instrument without it sliding back and forth. That's not going to work. You don't want them to be fighting with that all year, do you? Of course not. I also like to check the corners. Now, if your corners are broken off, it's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's another red flag. So if you see like chipped off corners, this instrument's probably been abused. So check for other things, all right? Every once in a while, I get an instrument with no sound post. So look through the treble side of the instrument, see if you can see a sound post there. We're gonna play test these, of course, just to make sure, and you're gonna be able to hear right away if there's no sound post or if the sound post is set up incorrectly, but just do a visual inspection. Make sure there's a sound post there. You'd be surprised what comes into my classroom sometimes. If you have high expectations and you enforce them, you're probably not gonna make too many friends because of it. You're probably gonna have to tell a disappointed parent that that's not a Guarnelli sitting up in their attic, that it's a piece of junk, and it's gonna blow their mind. Sorry about that. A lot of the shop owners are probably gonna get mad because you're sending all their stuff back and they're like, what's the deal? But you're not there to make friends with the shop owners. You're there to represent the students and to advocate for them. And that's your job. And they need to be okay with that, because if they're not okay with you doing your job, then you probably can't have a good business relationship with them, now can you? So have high expectations. The more you hold on to those expectations and enforce them, the less we're gonna see junk coming into our classrooms. I would like to eliminate all instrument junk and save our students and parents lots of money and teach them how to play on quality instruments. And you can help out too by having high expectations, check for quality control, and follow through. Don't accept anything less than what's on your spec sheet to come into your classroom. In the next video, we're going to talk about the bridge and what you should look for in a good quality bridge and what you should expect, what should be coming in, what you should send back to the shop. All right, we'll see you in the next one.